When Americans were getting familiar with the newly invented rollerblades and listening to the grunge band Nirvana, the Japanese were cooking up something in Honda's factory. Then in 1984, they revealed the vehicle that changed everything, the Honda CRX. The vehicle was not unlike any other from the factory. It was fast, light, and the real deal, and Honda fans were excited about the model. But in 1991, the company shut down production and died a quick death. To this day, the reason behind the company's decision remains unknown. Since the vehicle was a legend at its time, this video is a tribute, and you'll get to know the rise and fall of the CRX. Before we start, let's pour one for the unique hatchback that stole many's hearts. Now, let's get back to the very beginning. Before 1983, Honda was already making waves globally and was one of the top automotive companies in Japan. In fact, it was the third best in Japan, but Honda was determined to get ahead, and in 1978, they launched the Verno dealership. The Verno dealership was launched to make slightly different Hondas than the ones they sold at the time, especially cars suitable for the younger generation. That same year, they released the Honda Prelude. Then in 1980, the Quint rolled out. Also in 1980, the Honda Ballade, a restyled Civic sedan, was released, becoming the basis of the Honda CRX. Before the CRX, Honda got the inspiration for its name from music because the tuning of the vehicle was music to the ears, but they decided to tour a new path with the CRX. While all this was happening, Honda was also working towards getting back into Formula One racing in 1983. That led to the Honda-McLaren partnership that resulted in them dominating for several seasons. Back in 1983, the engineers at Honda wanted to make something sporty, but because of the economic and oil crisis, they needed it to be fuel efficient. So they decided to make a small sporty hatchback with a thrifty motor, which led to the release of the Honda Sports Ballade CRX. The CRX stood for Civic Renaissance Experimental. This vehicle had a wheelbase of 86.6 inches compared to the 93.7-inch wheelbase in the 1983 Civic hatchback. Now, that's a wide difference. The car also had a curb weight between 1,800 and 1,900 pounds. If you know your cars, you know that meant the car was feathery light. Although the vehicle was made for the Japanese and the Europeans, Honda America saw its potential and requested it, so the CRX also got to America. In America, it was only sold as a two-seater and lost the hyphen between the R and X. Meanwhile, Japan was a four-seater. What the car lacked in space, it delivered in speed and fuel efficiency. The car came in two trims, economy and sport. The economy model featured a 1.3-liter four-cylinder engine making 58 horsepower. The sports model came with 1.5-liter four cylinders making 76 horsepower. The speed might not sound incredible in modern times, but then it was a big deal. It took the fun little hatchback 10 to 12 seconds to get from 0 to 60 miles per hour. Not only was it fast, but it was also fuel efficient as it had a fuel economy of 38 miles per gallon in the city and 47 miles per gallon on the highway. But the smooth handling, which was better than most American vehicles at the time, was due to the light curb weight of the vehicle. It even won the 1984 Motor Trend Import Car of the Year. In 1985, the high fuel economy HF model came to replace the economy model with a 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine with the returned fuel economy of 40 mpg in the city and 48 mpg on the highway. Due to the lightness of the vehicle and the great handling, its racing potential showed, and it lured the Honda tuning specialist Jackson Racing to compete full. The CRX won several championships across all kinds of series. The incredible performance of the CRX did not go unnoticed by the Special Projects Department at American Honda Motors, and they also wanted to tap into the glory. So, they invited Mugen Power to help build a CRX for the SCCA GT4 class. Mugen was known for building Formula 2 engines, so when Honda asked, they delivered a 1.5-liter engine making 165 horsepower. With the Honda team working on the tuning and suspension, the car's performance was so incredible that it won its very first race. It also won the 1985 and 86 GT for national championships. That was not all. It also emerged as the overall winner at Carlsbad Raceway, even getting ahead of cars in higher GT classes. The CRX was also a popular choice for the fast-growing import drag racing scene. Everyone was talking about the incredible vehicle. Even the journalists kept singing its praises, and since it only cost about $17,000 at the time, most people wanted one. The people at Honda kept getting overwhelmed with orders and eventually sold about 171,392 over the years. Despite the success, people at Honda were all about making better versions. So they thought, what if we make it sportier? And they did. In 1985, the Civic CRX was made available in Japan and Europe with a dual overhead cam engine that gave off about 115 horsepower. But in the US, the car got the Sport injection, and the new model was the CRX SI. It featured a 1.5-liter single overhead cam engine as opposed to Japan, which meant it didn't give off as much horsepower. Nonetheless, it gave off 91 horsepower and 93 pounds of torque, which meant it was no tortoise. The SI still had the basic suspension, but it got a rear sway bar to improve cornering. As we said earlier, Honda was unstoppable, so after 4 years of making those little ponies, they decided to make an all-around upgrade and release a better, much improved version of the vehicle, thereby giving the second generation of the model. The second generation arrived in the 1988 model year, and this time the Civic in the name was scrapped, and it just became Honda CRX. This time, Honda replaced the obsolete suspension with a double wishbone setup at all four corners. This design is similar to the one used by Mazda Miata. It is one of the most ideal for performance driving, so imagine how incredible the handling would have been. For the period that the car was in existence, the Japanese market got the better versions. The second generation got the SIR version that had the legendary B16A dual overhead cam engine and featured an all-glass roof from Honda's VTEC technology. But the American version was alright too, as it did incredibly well in the market. Besides its lightness and speed, one of the reasons the car was very popular was because its parts were swappable like Lego pieces. Cult followings where people would gather on forums like Honda Tech to discuss and document interchangeability of parts and builds. Many aftermarket companies like Wing West, Mugen, Jackson Racing, Superchargers, AEM, Honda Skunk 2, and many more made parts for these cars, and enthusiasts had many options. In fact, the CRX's status made it feature in very popular video games like Need for Speed and Gran Turismo. People were excited about the fun color, but soon the car's color was associated with different weird incidents. Legend has it that the paint shop workers and Honda engineers around the cars fell ill due to the toxicity of the paint, which supposedly was radioactive. Not only the engineers got a share of the curse, but people also started claiming that due to the color of their cars, they were involved in freak accidents, had animals coming out of nowhere to hit their cars, and even being hit by other drivers constantly. Some even said the car would develop unnecessary faults compared to other CRXs they knew. The craziest part was when the tale about the website that asked about the curse of the color began to go around. They said the website suddenly vanished and cannot be found today. Creepy, right? But Honda didn't release any statement concerning the yellow color. Then in 1992, Honda made an announcement. They announced that a new model of Honda Civic would be released, and everyone was excited to see the new features that would come with the CRX. But instead of a CRX, it was a Civic del Sol, which was the end of the CRX.